a self-study on fasting and its relationship to working memory. But before I go into it, I want to do a quick explanation. So in current cognitive theory, there's the idea of working memory. Working memory is able to hold a limited number of items in the mind for a short period of time. So the number of items that you're able to hold is called your memory span.
George Miller came up with the magic number 7. This rule means that about 7 items can typically be held in short-term memory. However, this number is actually 7 plus or minus 2. It can change because people have larger memory spans, and some stimuli are easier to remember. Those with larger memory spans have shown greater performance on standardized tests, intelligence tests, and other cognitive tests because they're able to keep many different stimuli in memory at once, which gives them an advantage.
Additional studies suggested that the type of stimuli can also affect the memory span. And what this study suggested is that short-term memory is affected by verbal processes. So a list of words, for example, would be harder to recall than a list of letters, and a list of letters would be harder to recall than a list of digits. So with this in mind, my question was, how would fasting affect this? How would fasting affect memory span? And so for my self-study, it was my hypothesis that a memory task of digits, of letters, and of words, for each of these conditions, for each of these stimuli, my working memory, my memory span, would increase during fasting days compared to non-fasting days.
For 4 days, I took a memory task during 1 p.m. each day. I then began fasting from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. On the 4th day of fasting, I began taking the memory task again. After 11 days of fasting, I stopped fasting again. On the 4th day after fasting, I took the memory task again daily for 4 days. This was in order to catch practice effects. During this 24-day process, I kept the same sleep cycle, which is about 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. I ate the same amount of food and proportion of food types, such as grains and vegetables, and I studied for the same amount of hours. The only change was that my noon meal during the control group days was not present during the fasting days.
The memory task that I used came from CogLab. CogLab's website is listed in the description below. So CogLab would generate a list for me, a list of items. These items could either be words, letters, or digits. And for each of these, I would have to recall them in the same order that they were shown. For example, 1 would flash on my screen, and then the number 9, and the number 3, and I'd have to recall those in the same order. After 30 trials with different stimuli, CogLab gave me my results. These results were the maximum number of items I was able to remember with few errors, and this was essentially my memory span for each stimuli.
As you can see, the results did show a difference between control and fasting days. These are the means for the first 4 days non-fasting, these are for the 8 days while fasting, and these are for the last 4 days after fasting. These results are from a self-study that in no way proves causality.
It is, however, a way to speculate what might be going on in our minds during fasting, and raises more questions about the effects that fasting may have on short-term memory, about working memory, or may have on cognitive tasks in general. If you have any more questions or would like to share your experiences with either fasting or memory tasks, I encourage you to comment below.